With True Detective back on our screens, that means there's a brand new case for us to get our teeth into. In only the few episodes that have been released so far, we've seen a ton of hidden clues which range from things that people have said, evidence photographs, writing on the wall, the spiral symbol, and many other things that are bringing us closer to the killer, but also leading us astray. With there being many connections to Season 1, and with me just coming off the back of finishing Season 1 again just yesterday, I thought I'd explain every hidden clue that I've seen in Season 4 so far, and explain all of the connections to Season 1 of the case which Marty and Rust were working on. So let's get into it. Here is True Detective Season 4, Every Hidden Clue Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Clark, Annie K, and its connection to what Rose said. One thing that I found particularly interesting in episode 2 was what Rose said to Evangeline at the start of it. They were discussing the fact that Rose could see dead people, and the person that she could see was Travis, somebody who was actually revealed to be Rust's father from Season 1. Rose said to Evangeline that there were many other people that were out there that had the ability to see the dead just like her, and when she was talking about the dead, she said how when they arrive they want one of three things. They either want to visit, to tell you something, or to take you with them. I think Clark is one of these people who can see the dead, and I feel he could have been potentially seeing Annie appearing in front of him, hence him being driven to the point of insanity. With the main repeating motif in this season being she's awake, and him actually saying that before the research facility went black in episode 1, what if he's referring to Annie? When looking at the writing that was on all of his work that looked like it was carried out in a panicked state, there were things written such as her eyes, her face, so dark, never ever say her name, her fingers cold, her face, her eyes cold. I can feel her moving outside. I can hear her calling. I can hear her cold. Never sleep, never forget. And coming always. There were also several drawings of what I could only describe as the dark eyes that he was fearful of seeing. As well, on his wall above the shrine that he had of Annie, he had words written such as, all gone, come back, no, you don't go. And there was also a reference to the devil that was on the wall as well. Something which I thought was particularly interesting, as that was the first reference to something sinister being present in this season. The words cold and dark were used quite a lot in the writing that Clark did, and when looking at Travis, somebody that was dead, he looked extremely cold. So I feel Annie could be appearing in front of Clark as she may want one of those three things, and it's driven him to the point of insanity. Judging by the way that he was acting, one can only assume that she wants to take him with her. There was also something on his wall which is probably a bit far-fetched, but it's something that I've got my eye on for now. The way that the string was laid out with the shadow and the stick running through it, the shape really reminded me of the devil traps from Season 1. And with there being dream catchers all over the wall as well, it kind of could be some subtle subconscious link. Like I said, it's far-fetched for now, but it's in my head. With this season leaning into the supernatural, with people actually having the ability to see the dead, something that is the polar opposite to how Season 1 started out. There are quite literally an endless, unimaginable amount of opportunities for how things could potentially unfold. But I think at this moment, Annie is appearing in front of Clark, just like how Travis does to Rose. The spiral symbol, the Yellow King cult, and why it's in Ennis, Alaska. The spiral symbol that we saw tattooed on the back of Annie K, tattooed on Clark's chest, put on the head of the scientists, and also on the ceiling of the trailer that Clark and Annie used to go to is something that we've seen before. Something which has a dark history behind it, and that's something that Rose even knows. The spiral appeared in Season 1 of the show and was on the back of the victim Dora Lange after she was killed and left in a field to be found with antlers on her head. Whilst the meaning of the symbol was never truly explicitly revealed in Season 1 of the show, we saw that it was closely linked to Carcosa and the Yellow King cult, with the act of committing murders in a ritualistic fashion, with the killers hoping to eventually get closer to their god, Hasta. This is something that is huge for the case that Liz and Evangeline are working on. In Season 1, once Hart and Cohle got Childress, the person who was responsible for Dora Lange's killing, that was the case closed for them. But one important line that was spoken could be important for what's happening in Ennis. Rust was frustrated with the fact that there were more people in the video which depicted Mary Fontenot being killed that weren't caught, and they were unable to be identified, to which Marty responded by saying how they weren't going to get them all and that it simply wasn't the way the world worked. Not to say that the other people in the video went to Alaska and committed the murders. but it showed that since 2012, with there still being people out there from when Rust and Hart closed the case that were never caught, that means there's been several years for the cult to grow, gain more momentum and followers, and eventually just develop. We know that the cult travelled around as well, so there's nothing to say that it didn't go to Alaska at some point. With it seeming like the Tuttles could have come into contact with Ennis as well, maybe that's where Clark or Annie was introduced to it. So with the spiral being something which was a key part of the cult, its appearance in Ennis is something which connects the murders to a darker entity, and it shows that maybe the scientists were killed in a ritualistic fashion, hence the symbol being present on their head. Maybe they didn't freeze to death and they were killed prior to them being found. The fact that Annie K had the tattoo and Clark did too, and also it being plastered around Clark's trailer's ceiling, it does make me question the both of them a lot more. Especially Annie K, considering that she had the tattoo before her death. I think Annie's tattoo could mean one of two things. Either she was somebody that was taken victim by the cult that could be present in Alaska, but she managed to get a lucky escape. And as we heard early on in the season, the police tend to turn a blind eye due to the underpinning racism that is present, so maybe it wasn't picked up on or taken seriously. Or she could have actually been somebody that had dark intentions and was part of the cult that was present in Ennis, if it is there. And maybe she wasn't the good person that we've been initially led to believe. I could see that twist coming. The spiral symbol has appeared in many different forms over the course of the show, and with it even being projected through birds at one point. Its connection to supernatural entities and its origin is something which is definitely present. With its meaning being up for interpretation, it's one that adds to the ominous feel of the season. The Tuttles are funding the Tsalal Research Center. One major revelation in the most recent episode is that we found out through Peter that the Tuttles were essentially funding the Tsalal Research Station where the scientists were based and doing their work. It was being funded by a shell company called NC Global Strategies, which was owned by Tuttle United. The Tuttles played a large role in season 1 of the show and were strongly connected to the cult, which went on to commit several murders in the state in the name of the Yellow King. The Tuttles operated the cult where they would sacrifice people and children as some kind of worship towards Hasta, also known as the Yellow King. They would use the religious schools that they set up as fronts to their cult so that their horrific activities would go unnoticed and would mean that there would be no suspicions raised towards them. However, their community-driven, well-intended approach was something which was merely a facade, and it was a way of feeding their cult as well. With the Tuttles being behind the Tsalal research facility and them pumping money into it, what if this is another front that's been set up with ill intentions? It didn't seem like all of the workers were aware of what Clark was and the Yellow King cult, as he was the only person that after searching the authorities found ties to. But with this season having a more supernatural edge to it, it doesn't seem like it's going to be as straightforward as just a cult this time. But the Tuttles being connected to the facility is a massive revelation, and something which will be key to the story moving forward, unless the showrunner just put it in for an Easter egg, which would be a bit pointless. Will Rust or Marty return to the show? One thing that would be amazing to see in this season would be Rust and Marty returning to the show. With the symbol being present, it's something which looks like it could be connected to their case, which dated back to '95 when they were first assigned to the Dora Lange murder. Liz wanted the case to stay out of Anchorage, which is the police force in the largest city in Alaska, something which I think would have meant that they would have been able to have connected the dots quicker. However, if Liz and Evangeline do look into it deeper, they may notice the similarities with what was occurring in Louisiana and reach out to the two detectives. We know that in 2012, the characters were willing to talk about the case with the police force, as that was the whole premise of season 1. And if there is the chance to catch the other people that Rust was bitter over not catching, then I feel he'd probably want to. With him also being from Alaska, that could open up the door even more. It's far-fetched at the moment, I know, but it's something that would be incredible to see. The case is definitely showing that it's got some strong connections with season 1, and I hope that it actually will, rather than us just being led down a pathway. After coming off of season 1 for the first time in a long while just yesterday evening, I remembered just how good that first season actually was, and whilst I'm enjoying season 4 so far, I hope that it does continue to just get better and better as the weeks go on. So, there you have it, True Detective Season 4, Every Hidden Clue Explained.